Bingo for Shingo. Hey man, we live. This your boy, your host, Arthur Chill Fetty, man. Told you I was coming back with something deep for the family. You know what I'm saying? And today, what we dealing with, man, is the future. You hear me, family? Hey, you really got to be up to date with this here knowledge. Because if you're not up to date, man, you're gonna be lost in the sauce. You did? For real. It's 2023. We going into 2024. You hear me? For sure. So let's check out what's coming up in the future. You hear me? Because your kids may have to teach you a thing or two if you're not on point. You feel me? So when they come to ask you with these questions, what's going on with this, how you do that? If you ain't sharp, if you ain't been studying, hey man, just telling you now. So, like, subscribe. Let's get these likes up. Tell a friend so they'll tell another friend. You hear me? I'm always stay consistent, but I'm always keep that heat in the kitchen for you. So we got a good documentary right here. I'm gonna do a little commentating, give you some little sauce on what I know. Keep you up to what's going on in the market. You hear me? And also, let's start building this generational wealth. You got companies out here right now today that you can invest in, you know, to keep things afloat for you and your household. You hear me? So let's get into some things. Let's hear some of the do's, the don'ts, some of the cons to this AI thing, because it's all about the future. Everything is moving at a rapid pace, family. Everything is moving at a rapid pace. Trust me when I say so. They're going to have cars driving by themselves. You hear me? They got big data centers that's collecting all our information, everything that we've been doing on social media. They're mimicking us when you look at the video games, the GTA, Call of Duty, um, Madden football, basketball. These games are all mimicking human moves. So understand with this AIGA, the generative technology that's finna get ready and coming out. Whew, man, I'm talking about Amazon already got robots, $20,000 robot. That's basically saying, hey, we can replace you. We don't need you working at Amazon when we can give a robot your pay. They saying you ain't wait for nothing but $20,000. And that's $10 an hour. Understand where I'm coming from. So let's get into this. Let's really see what's going on. Pay attention. Get you some knowledge. Because this is what we do. Fire knowledge research. We're going to bring you the best. We're going to bring you the latest. We're going to bring you update news. So let's get to it. All right. All right. Let's get to this here. Let's switch these screens on over. You hear me? And I'm going to get back on the screen too as well. Let me get to this here. Let's go. Mm. Let's see what we got
tonight.
The race to become an AI superpower is on.
The politics of
Okay.
artificial intelligence.
There would be a Chinese tech sector, and there would be an American tech sector.
The new tech war.
The more data, the better the AI works. So in the age of AI, where data is the new oil, China is the new Saudi Arabia.
The future of work.
When I increase productivity through automation, jobs go away.
I believe about 50% of jobs will be somewhat or extremely threatened by AI in the next 15 years or so.
AI and corporate surveillance.
We thought that we were searching Google. We had no idea that Google was searching us.
And the threat to democracy.
China is on its way to building a total surveillance state.
Tonight on Frontline.
It has pervaded so many elements of everyday life. How do we make it transparent and accountable?
In the age of AI.
real. Y'all get ready, man. This thing here deep. You hear me? This is for your host, Dr. Chill Fed. Let's get it in.
This is the world's most complex board game. There are more possible moves in the game of Go than there are atoms in the universe. Legend has it that in 2300 BCE, Emperor Yao devised it to teach his son discipline, concentration, and balance. And over 4,000 years later, this ancient Chinese game would signal the start of a new industrial age. It was 2016 in Seoul, South Korea.
Can machines overtake human intelligence? A breakthrough moment when the world champion of the ancient board game Go takes on an AI program developed by Google.
여전히 자신감은 있는 상태구나. 아무래도 역시 아직은 인간의 직관력이나 이런 감각들을 컴퓨터인 인공지능이 따라오기에는 약간 무리가 있지 않나 이렇게 생각을 해서 제가 꼭
in countries where it's very popular, like China and Japan and South Korea, to them Go is not just a game, right? It's like how you learn strategy. It has an almost spiritual component. You know, if you talk to South Koreans, right, and Lee Sedol is the world's greatest Go player, is the national hero in South Korea. They were sure that Lee Sedol would beat AlphaGo hands down.
Google's AlphaGo was a computer program that, starting with the rules of Go and a database of historical games, had been designed to teach itself.
I was one of the commentators at the Lee Sedol games. And yes, it was watched by tens of millions of people.
Throughout Southeast Asia, this was seen as a sports spectacle with national pride at stake. But much more was in play. This was the public unveiling of a form of artificial intelligence called deep learning that mimics the neural networks of the human brain.
So what happens with machine learning and artificial intelligence, initially with AlphaGo, is that the machine is fed all kinds of Go games. And then it studies them, learns from them, and it figures out its own moves. And because it's an AI system, it's not just following instructions, it's figuring out its own instructions. It comes up with moves that humans hadn't thought of before. So it studies games that humans have played, it knows the rules, and then it comes up with creative moves.
와, 정말 정말 생각지도 못한.
That's a very surprising move.
So
That was a mistake.
just
When there's nothing holding you back, what would your thing be?
this thing gonna be coming up with all kinds of ideas.
What if I told you you can make money playing video games? You would think it's impossible, or you need to have a huge following over on Twitch. But with Kick and the 95-5 split, it enables gamers with smaller.
What we finna do? We finna
A
get right here.
4.5 billion year old planet.
Let's go.
Network of enormous underwater canyons stretching right around the planet. But that wasn't all. Running parallel to the trench, on the other side of the Pacific, the map showed a giant underwater mountain range, the East Pacific Ridge. And this, too, is part of a global network, a 40,000-mile-long chain of mountain ranges that ring the globe like the seams of a baseball to make the largest geological feature on Earth. It was a major development in the investigation, one that scientists hoped might explain the trench's formation. The next step was clear. Investigators needed to understand whether there was a connection between the trench and the East Pacific Ridge. The breakthrough came from the unlikeliest of sources. During the Cold War, the US built a vast network of underground seismometers to pick up atomic bomb testing around the world. Inadvertently, the seismometers also detected naturally occurring earthquakes. When geologists plotted these on a map, a pattern emerged. The earthquakes were clustered along the ocean's ridges and trenches. It was a discovery that transformed our understanding of the Earth. Geologists realized the friction that causes earthquakes comes from movements that must be occurring deep beneath the ridges and trenches.
With this great investment in seismology, it became possible to locate very precisely where earthquakes had occurred. And it was these things, the precise location, the depth, and the motion, that really gave the outlines of plate tectonics.
It was the birth of an extraordinary new theory. The solid layer of rock, the crust on which the land and ocean sits, is broken up into a series of vast slabs that geologists call tectonic plates. It's these plates that are moving, grinding past each other, and triggering earthquakes. The underwater ridges and trenches sit on the boundaries between tectonic plates. The East Pacific Ridge and the Marianas Trench lie on opposite edges of the Pacific Plate. The journey to discover what formed the Marianas Trench is accumulating additional evidence. The Trieste dived to the bottom of the trench and confirmed that it is the deepest point on the planet. Sonar maps then revealed the East Pacific Ocean ridge running parallel to the trench. To solve the mystery of the Marianas Trench, investigators needed to find out exactly what was happening at the East Pacific Ridge, and that meant exploring these vast mountains, 8,000 feet underwater.
8,000 feet underwater, we got mountains.
The pieces of the Marianas Trench puzzle are falling into place with the knowledge that it lies on the western edge of the Pacific tectonic plate. On the opposite side of the plate lies the East Pacific Ocean Ridge, part of an enormous chain of underwater mountain ranges that ring the globe to create the largest geological feature on Earth. Scientists had a hunch that this colossal ridge might help explain how the trench was formed. And they found a major clue halfway round the globe, where the ridge passed beneath the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. During the Cold War, the US Navy developed a new technique to spot Soviet submarines.
Hold on.
They scanned the seas with a tool called MAD, a magnetic anomaly detector, which could pinpoint steel hulls lurking in the deep. But they stumbled across something else. Running parallel on either side of the ridge, they found strange stripes of magnetic rocks, alternating positive and negative away from the ridge's peak.
Here's the mid-Atlantic ridge coming down through here. Almost perfectly symmetric on either side of that are these white and black stripes. These have often been called zebra stripes.
Geologists know that the Earth is like a giant.
Game 2, Move 37.
That move 37 was a move that humans could not fathom.
Gotcha.
But yet it ended up being brilliant and woke people up to say, wow, after thousands of years of playing, we never thought about making a move like that.
Oh, he resigned. It looks like Lee Sedol has just resigned, actually.
Ooh.
In the end, the scientists watched their algorithms win 4 of the games. Lee Sedol took 1.
What happened with Go, first and foremost, was a huge victory for DeepMind and for AI, right? It wasn't that the computers beat the humans. It was that, one type of intelligence beat another.
Artificial intelligence had proven it could marshal a vast amount of data beyond anything any human could handle and use it to teach itself how to predict an outcome. The commercial implications were enormous.
While AlphaGo is a toy game, but its success and its waking everyone up, I think, is going to be remembered as the pivotal moment where AI became mature and everybody jumped on the bandwagon.
This is about the consequences of that defeat. How the AI algorithms are ushering in a new age of great potential and prosperity. But an age that will also deepen inequality, challenge democracy, and divide the world into two AI superpowers. Tonight, 5 stories about how artificial intelligence is changing our world.
And see, let me just put it on the screen here for a second. Get back to it. Like, listen, man. Do not sleep on China. China is basically pretty much saying that, hey, we a new world power. We the ones that's pretty much got the population control. We got more human beings in our country than the United States. The only people that got more human beings than the United States and China is pretty much India. Now, that's why you're seeing Tesla trying to get over there to India. That's why you see Microsoft going towards India. That's why you see Apple going towards India. That's why you see a lot of big corporations moving to India, because they're pretty much one of the world's most populated places. So the income over there is pretty much minor, and the cost of living is cheaper. So if you look at the shifts in the world today, from corporations, big companies, they started out in Africa, you know, small labor, then they moved to China. From China, now they're going to India. You know what I mean? Because of the simple fact that it's cheaper. The labor is cheaper. Feel me? But you got to understand. So when you see stuff like this happen, shifts in power, it's going to go from United States, big mega dog, big power, superpower, China, mega dog, superpower. Now, India going to get the next chance, maybe 10, 20, 30 years from now, superpower. Because technology is doing nothing but shifting. So you got to think about all the corporations, probably just a board of people that own a lot of money, own a lot of assets. You know what I'm saying? Make the big calls in these rooms that we can't go in. That's sitting on these board of directors saying, hey, look, you control this here country. I'm going to control this country. My next power move going to be in this country. And my next power move going to be in this country. You hear me? So you ain't got number four poles, north, west, south, and east. You hear me? So at the end of the day, by them creating this AI, and you got to understand, Microsoft just ousted Sam Altman, the creator of ChatGPT, OpenAI, DALL-E. You hear me? So when you just one person against a board of directors in a corporation, ain't nothing you can really do. But the only thing he got on them is his mind. So sometimes you can get them 97, 98%, but you can't give them that 2% that you got for yourself, because you know how it runs, you know how it works. So a lot of people was saying, okay, I'm ready to go with Sam. You hear me? Then Microsoft saw that. So they're like, well, hey man, we might want to keep him, but he can only have so much power over such and such. You feel me? So let me just let you know. That's why it's good for you as a creator to start creating your own platform. And they will make you a billionaire. They will make you a millionaire because you got something they want. But at the same time, is it going to do good for the human society? Is it going to be a good thing for humanity? Or is it going to be an evil thing? You hear me? So dealing with this AI, what is it going to really evolve into? Because we was in the industrial age, you feel me? The internet age. Now we in the information age, where a lot of companies collecting a lot of data. And this data is pretty much building what's behind me. You know what I'm saying? Boom. This the $6 million man here. You heard me? For real. You remember that show, the $6 million man? Hey, for real though. They even got it to where they trying to make you live longer. Elon Musk with the Neuralink, going to Mars. Hey man, you gotta realize it's a lot going on. A lot going on. Check this here. Let's go. Get y'all back into this. And let's get to right here. Try to get rid of some of these commercials.
Stores and offices. At a college in Goshen, Indiana, a group of local business and political leaders come together to try to understand the impact of AI and the new machines. Molly Kinder studies the future of work at a Washington think tank.
How many people have gone into a fast food restaurant and done a self-ordering? Anyone? Yes? Panera, for instance, is doing this. Cashier was my first job. And where I live in Washington, D.C., it's actually the #1 occupation for the greater D.C. region. There are millions of people who work in cashier positions. This is not a futuristic challenge. This is something that's happening through the
right now.
we think.
Cashier.
In the popular discussions about
you
robots and automation and work, almost every image is of
cash out on your own
a
at
factory
Walmart,
floor or a
Target.
truck driver. And yet, in our data, when we looked, women disproportionately hold the jobs that today are at highest risk of automation. And that's not really being talked about. And that's in part because women are overrepresented in some of these marginalized occupations, like
AI
a
taking over
cashier
all
or
the
a
women
fast food
jobs.
worker,
Cash,
and also in large numbers in clerical
remote
jobs in offices, HR departments,
clerks.
payroll, finance. A
This-
lot of that is more routine processing information, processing paper, transferring data. That has huge potential for automation. AI is going to do some of that. Software robots are going to do some of that. So how many people are still working as switchboard operators? Probably none in this country.
The workplace of the future will demand different skills, and gaining them, says Molly Kinder, will depend on who can afford them.
I mean, it's not a good situation in the United States. There's been some excellent research that says that half of Americans couldn't afford a $400 unexpected expense. And if you want to get to $1,000, there's even less. So imagine you're going to go out without a month's pay, 2 months' pay, a year. Imagine you want to put savings toward a course to redevelop your career. People can't afford to take time off of work. They don't have a cushion. So this lack of economic stability married with the disruptions in people's careers is a really toxic mix.
The new machines will penetrate every sector of the economy, from insurance companies to human resource departments, from law firms to the trading floors of Wall Street.
Wall Street's going through it, but every industry is going through it. Every company is looking at all of the disruptive technologies. Could be robotics or drones or blockchain, and whatever it is, every company is using everything that's developed, everything that's disruptive, and thinking about how do I apply that to my business to make myself more efficient. And what efficiency means is mostly how do I do this with fewer workers. And I do think that when we look at some of the studies about opportunity in this country and the inequality of opportunity, the likelihood that you won't be able to advance from where your parents were, I think that's very serious and gets to the heart of the way we like to think of America as the land of opportunity.
Inequality has been rising in America. It used to be the top 1% of earners, here in red, owned a relatively small portion of the country's wealth. Middle and lower earners, in blue, had the largest share. Then, 15 years ago, the lines crossed, and inequality has been increasing ever since.
There's many factors that are driving inequality today, and unfortunately, artificial intelligence, without being thoughtful about it, is a driver for increased inequality because it's a form of automation, and automation is the substitution of capital for labor. And when you do that, the people with the capital win.
You better believe it.
Karl Marx was right. It's a struggle between capital and labor. And with artificial intelligence, we're putting our finger on the side of capital.
Trust me,
and how we wish to distribute the benefits, the economic benefits that will create is going to be a major moral consideration for society over the next several decades.
This is really an outgrowth of the increasing gaps of haves and have-nots. The wealthy getting wealthier, the poor getting poorer. It may not be specifically related to AI, but but AI will exacerbate that, and that I think will tear the society apart because the rich will have just too much, and those who are have-nots will have perhaps very little way of digging themselves out of the hole. And with the AI making its impact, it'll be worse, I think.
I'm here today for one main reason, to say thank you to Ohio.
I think the Trump vote was a protest. I mean, for whatever reason, whatever the hot button was that, that really hit home with these Americans that voted for him, it was a protest vote. They didn't like the direction things were going. I'm scared. I'm going to be quite honest with you. I worry about the future of not just this country, but the entire globe. If we continue to go in an automated system, what are we going to do? Now I've got a group of people at the top that are making all the money, and I don't have anybody in the middle that can support a family. So do we have to go to the point where we crash to come back? And in this case, the automation's already going to be there, so I don't know how you come back. I'm really worried about where this leads us in the future.
For real now. You heard me? Better step out, give me a little snackety-lackety. You heard me? A little snack. Check this out.
The future is largely being shaped by a few hugely successful tech companies. They're constantly buying up successful smaller companies and recruiting talent. Between the US and China, they employ a great majority of the leading AI researchers and scientists. In the course of amassing such power, they've also become among the richest companies in the world.
AI really is the ultimate tool of wealth creation. Think about the massive data that Facebook has on user preferences and how it can very smartly target an ad that you might buy something and get a much.
Listen, man. That's why I had to bring y'all this here. You got Facebook, Google, all these big time TikTok. You hear me? Snapchat, Amazon. All they do is sit back and collect data. So what you have in your mind, and as soon as you post it on social media, that's why they got, do you wish this app to track you? And even though you probably say no, but the app's still gonna track you. You know why? Because of the simple fact. When you go online to order something off Amazon or order you something from one of them websites, it don't track you. So next time you go on one of them social platforms, it's going to boom, pop an ad up. And guess what? That same ad going to have something similar to what you previously brought. Because you're a consumer. United States are the #1 consumers in the world. The black culture, the African American culture, are the #1 consumers in the United States. Because, hey, they say, hey, man, we want to live good. We want to live like the Joneses. You hear me? The Johnsons. You feel me? So understand what I'm getting at. They collecting our data and using it against us. I'm just going to leave it right there, but they're going to tell you some more. You got to be sharp in this game. They say, hey, well, hey, if you can't beat them, join them. And I'm going to tell you like this. If you're going to join them, invest your money in the ETF, the VOO, the SPY, the 500 companies that's top in the United States of America. And do your research, do your due diligence. I am not a fiduciary. I'm not a financial advisor. But what I do want you to do is think before you spend. Let's go.
Bigger cut that a smaller company couldn't do. Same with Google, same with Amazon. So it's AI is a set of tools that helps you maximize an objective function. And that objective function initially will simply be make more money.
And it is how these companies make that money and how their algorithms reach deeper and deeper into our world, our daily lives, and our democracy that makes many people increasingly uncomfortable. Pedro Domingos wrote the book, The Master Algorithm.
Everywhere you go, you generate a cloud of data. You're trailing data. Everything that you do is producing data. And then there are computers looking at that data that are learning, and these computers are essentially trying to serve you better. They're trying to personalize things to you. They're trying to adapt the world to you. So on the one hand, this is great because the world will get adapted to you without you even having to explicitly adapt it. There's also a danger because the entities and the companies that are in control of those algorithms don't necessarily have the same goals as you. And this is where I think people need to be aware that of what's going on so they can have more control over it.
You know, we came into this new world thinking that we were users of social media. It didn't occur to us that social media was actually using us.
You better believe it.
We thought that we were searching Google. We had no idea that Google was searching us.
Shoshana Zuboff is a Harvard Business School professor emerita. In 1988,
For
she wrote a
real.
definitive book called In the Age of the Smart Machine. For the last 7 years,
Telling
she
you,
has
man.
worked on a new book, making the case that we have now entered a new phase of the economy, which
Yeah,
she calls surveillance capitalism.
for real.
So famously, industrial capitalism claimed nature, innocent rivers and meadows and
I just
forests
broke
and
that
so
down
forth
to y'all now.
for the market dynamic
You got to know
to
your
be
history.
reborn as real estate, as
Don't
land that
just
could be
be
sold and purchased.
talking to talk.
Industrial
Man.
capitalism
This
claimed
knowledge
work
research.
for the
This
market
is what we
dynamic
do over here.
to be reborn as labor
Like, subscribe,
that
tell a
could
friend,
be
tell another
sold
friend.
and
You hear me?
purchased. Now here comes surveillance capitalism, following this pattern, but with a dark and startling twist.
Mm.
What surveillance capitalism claims is private human experience. Private human experience is claimed as a free source of raw material, fabricated into predictions of human behavior.
Mm.
And it turns out that there are a lot of businesses that really want to know what we will do now, soon, and later.
Mm.
Like most people, Alastair McTaggart had no idea about this new surveillance business until one evening in 2015.
I had a conversation with a fellow who's an engineer, and I was just talking to him one night at dinner at a cocktail party, and there had been something in the press that day about privacy in the paper, and I remember asking him, he worked for Google, what's the big deal about why are people so worked up about it? And I thought it was going to be one of those conversations like with, if you ever ask an airline pilot, should I be worried about flying? And they say, oh, your most dangerous part is coming to the airport, in the car. And he said, oh, you'd be horrified if you knew how much we knew about you. And I remember that kind of stuck in my head because it was not what I expected.
That question would change his life. A successful California real estate developer, McTaggart began researching the new business model.
What I've learned since is that their entire business is learning as much about you as they can. Everything about your thoughts and your desires and your dreams and who your friends are and what you're thinking, what your private thoughts are. And with that, that's true power. And so I think I didn't know that at the time. Their entire business is basically mining the data of your life.
Shoshana Zuboff had been doing her own research.
I'd been reading and reading and reading, from patents to transcripts of earnings calls, research reports, and just literally everything for years and years and years.
Her studies included the early days of Google, started in 1998 by two young Stanford grad students, Sergey Brin and Larry Page. In the beginning, they had no clear business model. Their unofficial motto was, "Don't be evil."
Right from the start, the founders, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, they had been very public about their antipathy toward advertising. Advertising would distort the internet, and it would distort and disfigure the purity of any search engine, including their own.
Once in love with e-commerce, Wall Street has turned its back on the dot-coms.
Then came the dot-com crash of the early 2000s.
Has left hundreds of unprofitable internet companies begging for love and money.
While Google had rapidly become the default search engine for tens of millions of users, their investors were pressuring them to make more money. Without a new business model, the founders knew that the young company was in danger.
In this state of emergency, the founders decided we've simply got to find a way to save this company. And so parallel to this were another set of discoveries where it turns out that whenever we search or whenever we browse, we're leaving behind traces, digital traces of our behavior.
Mm.
And those traces back in these days were called digital exhaust.
They realized how valuable this data could be by applying machine learning algorithms to predict users' interests.
What happened was they decided to turn to those data logs in a systematic way and to begin to use these surplus data as a way to come up with fine-grained predictions of what a user would click on, what kind of ad a user would click on. And inside Google, they
Large
started seeing
language
these
model,
revenues
LLM.
pile up at a startling rate. They realized that they had to keep it secret. They didn't want anyone to know how much money they were making or how they were making it, because users had no idea that these extra...
Listen, man, it's an app called Brilliant. Go on your iOS or your Google Play Store, download the app called Brilliant, gives you some knowledge and learn a few things. I'm not being sponsored, but I'm just letting you know, man, because of the simple fact that we need to stay up to date as a community. We need to stay up to date as people in this society. Okay? So you heard it here first. Let's get it in, grind, do your knowledge, do your due diligence, and, you know, just research, man. That's real. And apply, execute. Let's go.
behavioral data that told so much about them. You know, it was just out there, and now it was being used to predict their future.
When Google's IPO took place just a few years later, the company had a market capitalization of around $23 billion. Google's stock was now as valuable as General Motors.
And it was only when Google went public in 2004 that the numbers were released. And it's at that point that we learned that between the year 2000 and the year 2004, Google's revenue line increased by 3,590%.
Let's talk a little bit about information and search and how people consume it.
By 2010, the CEO of Google, Eric Schmidt, would tell The Atlantic magazine,
is we don't need you to type at all because we know where you are with your permission. We know where you've been with your permission. We can more or less guess what you're thinking about. Now, is that over the line?
Eric Schmidt and Google declined to be interviewed for this program. Google's new business model for predicting users' profiles had migrated to other companies, particularly Facebook. Roger McNamee was an early investor and advisor to Facebook. He's now a critic and wrote a book about the company. He says he's concerned about how widely companies like Facebook and Google have been casting the net for data.
And then they realized, wait a minute, there's all this data in the economy we don't have. So they went to credit card processors and credit rating service and said, we want to buy your data. They go to health and wellness apps and say, hey, you got women's menstrual cycles? We want all that stuff. Why are they doing that? They're doing that because behavioral prediction is about taking uncertainty out of life. Advertising and marketing are all about uncertainty. You never really know who's going to buy your product until now. We have to recognize that we gave technology a place in our lives that it had not earned. That essentially, because technology always made things better in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, we developed a sense of inevitability that will always make things better. We developed a trust, and the industry earned goodwill that Facebook and Google have cashed in.
The model is simply this: provide a free service like Facebook, and in exchange, you collect the data of the millions who use it. And every sliver of information is valuable.
It's not just what you post, it's that you post. It's not just that you make plans to see your friends later. It's whether you say, I'll see you later, or I'll see you at 6:45. It's not just that you talk about the things that you have to do today. It's whether you simply rattle them on in a rambling paragraph, or list them as bullet points. All of these tiny signals are the behavioral surplus that turns out to have immense predictive value.
In 2010, Facebook experimented with AI's predictive powers in what they called a social contagion experiment. They wanted to see if, through online messaging, they could influence real-world behavior.
They did it.
The aim was to get more people to the polls in the 2010 midterm elections.
Cleveland, I need you to keep on fighting. I need you to keep on believing.
They offered 61 million users an I voted button, together with faces of friends who had voted. A subset of users received just the button. In the end, they claimed to have nudged 340,000 people to vote. They would conduct other massive contagion experiments. Among them, one showing that by adjusting their feeds, they could make users happy or sad.
When they went to write up these findings, they boasted about two things. One was, oh my goodness, now we know that we can use cues in the online environment to change real-world behavior. That's big news. The second thing that they understood and they celebrated was that we can do this in a way that bypasses the user's awareness.
Private corporation.
Hey man, what I'm finna do is I just wanted y'all to tap in, you know what I mean, and understand what we dealing with. We dealing with a beast. This AI, when it take over, whew, man, you got 50-some million African Americans in the United States. At least 600-700 million in the United States. Worldwide, billions. They collecting everybody data. Now, different corporations hold different sets of data. And they already know what you're thinking when you get on this internet. You think this camera watching me, they watching me too. So my thing is to you, you can't outsmart it. But it don't know what you're thinking. But at the same time, you have to use it to your advantage. Build your wealth. Think smart. Think long term. Invest and be safe. For your knowledge research, like, subscribe. Tell a friend so they'll tell another friend. This your boy, your host, off the Chill Fetty. They gave you a lot of pointers, gave you a few books to read, and all I do is just bring you the knowledge. Let it stay hot in the kitchen, and that's real. This your boy, your host, off the Chill Fetty, aka Chill Will. 2024, get it in. For real. Don't be left behind.